Observations in Grasslands National Park and buying telescopes for young folks on episode 495 of the Actual Astronomy Podcast. Chris, and joining me is Shane. We are amateur astronomers who love looking up at the night sky, and this podcast is for everybody who enjoys going out under the stars. And Shane, it sounds like you were out under the stars in recent days down in the grasslands. Do you want to tell us a little more about that?
Yeah, for sure. So I kind of mentioned a little bit about it on the last episode that we recorded with Mike O'Brien. He was in a provincial park, Douglas Park, observing the same night that I was in Grasslands National Park observing. And it was a really nice night. Conditions were really good. Like it was perfectly clear. Transparency was, I think, about as good as you can get. There's no smoke or anything in the air. The seeing was pretty good. I wouldn't say it was great, but it was pretty darn good. And I was only there for one night, and I was doing a blended trip. Like I wanted to do astronomy in the nighttime, and then do some hiking the next day.
That can be a bad combination down there.
Yeah, well, especially, I've learned to not do the hiking before astronomy because then, you have no energy for astronomy. So I thought, this is a better way to blend it maybe. But because I was only there for one night, I really didn't want to load like the TSA 102 and the Bino viewer and the eyepieces and the big mount and the Nexus digital setting circles because it's a lot. Like it's, more stuff to put in the vehicle and pack and, all of the friction that it adds. I don't mind doing that when I'm there for multiple nights because I'm going to get a lot of use out of it. But because of that factor, I decided to go just with the 90 millimeter Borg.
Oh, nice.
And kind of the suitcase observatory approach.
Oh, I'm excited to hear about this.
Yeah, so I left the Bino viewers behind. I took two eyepieces. I took the 30 millimeter APM UFF and then the Leica aspheric zoom. I brought a 2-inch Teleview Nebbuster filter. And then the mount was the Berleback Castor 2 mount, just on an old Manfrotto photo tripod.
Yeah.
You and I basically have the same tripod. It's pretty solid, especially for a light scope like that.
Yeah.
And I just used the Pocket Sky Atlas to tour around for my night. So it was a lot of fun. Where to start here? Well, as we talked about in the last episode, it doesn't really start getting dark until about 11 and not really dark until, 11:30-ish, maybe midnight. Although being a little further south, I think that helped me a bit.
I think, yeah. At this time of year, we're just getting dark. Like I was surprised even between, I think, last Thursday and Friday night.
Mhm.
Because I think last Thursday it was clear-ish and I went out with binoculars. And then this Friday night, just, it seemed like darkness has finally returned. So even though it's
Yes.
not getting dark, as quickly as at other times of the year, it seems like we're now back into observing season.
Yeah, I would totally agree with that. Yeah, and like by 11 o'clock, like the Milky Way was out, and by 11:30, it was just, like I kind of forget how majestic that sky is down
Mm,
there, just because you only spend a few nights a year there, and it is just so amazing. And at around 11:30-ish, like when that Milky Way was like super pronounced, like it's just so big. It occupies so much of the sky, and it feels different, like almost like you can reach out and touch it, like it is just a wonderful thing. And when I'm there, I sometimes get caught up just looking at the Milky Way naked eye and
mm.
seeing all of the brightness variations, all of the dark nebula, and kind of the dark lanes that wind through that Milky Way. There's just so much to see naked eye, just that, under a really dark sky, that you can spend an awful lot of time, trying to see all of that detail that you're just not used to being able to see because you you just don't get dark skies like that all that often.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I mean it
Um,
really is a Bortle one sky. So how did the 90 millimeter perform? So it's a 90 millimeter f 5.6 or roughly around a 500 millimeter focal length, isn't it?
yeah, yeah, 500 millimeter focal length. So pretty fast refractor. Yeah, it did really well. I started the night observing like around 11 o'clock, and because it was not 100% dark at that point, I think like the sun set at 8:55. So I'm at 2 hours later, I'm into astronomical darkness, but it's
Hmm.
still not perfectly dark. So I started just nailing some double stars off the RASC double star observing program. There's a few summer stars that I had left. I had some in Scorpius, some in Hercules, uh, and Capricorn as well. Um, so what did I look at here? Uh, I started with Xi Scorpius XI.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, yeah. It's kind of a like almost like the double double up in Lyra. Like there's two stars that have a pretty wide separation. That was fairly visible or easily visible in the 30 millimeter. Like separation was not an issue. And then I put the Leica in at its most powerful or shortest focal length of 8.9 millimeter. And like those two wide stars turned into like two sets of stars, which was really neat.
Mm.
So that was
Oh
kind of
yeah,
a
I'm just
fun.
looking at them.
Yeah.
Oh
Yeah.
wow, that is pretty cool.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's neat to see how magnification transforms a system like that. It was fun.
Yes, this is in the absolute north. This is the brightest star in the northern reaches of Scorpius, almost
Yeah.
on the
Yeah.
border with well, it is really on the border with Ophiuchus. Not too far from M5, just southeast of it by maybe 15 degrees or so.
Yeah. 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 I really wanted to like get in as much of the, kind of southern sky, low in the sky stuff because it was just a nice unobstructed view that I don't get all that often.
Mm.
But then I moved up to Hercules. Um, First one I looked at there was Rasal Gethi. Um, it's one of the prominent stars in Hercules, and it was very, very challenging. This might be the most challenging double of the entire list that I've looked at, because it just like the primary is quite bright. I think it's like a magnitude 3 star or somewhere in that range, 3.5.
Mm.
But the secondary is very, very faint. I should have checked what that magnitude is. The separation, like they were close, but not like extremely close to make that part of the observation challenging. It was just the difference in magnitude was like quite severe.
Hmm.
The primary star kind of had a red orange tinge to it. The secondary didn't appear white, but I couldn't tell you the color at the eyepiece. It just was too dim to really pull any color.
Yep.
But I think it's actually like a green star.
Oh,
So it would be fun to put like more aperture on that particular double just to see if you could pull out that green color, especially because you have an orange star right beside it. The
yeah.
contrast would be very interesting. So that was a fun double. And what's interesting is in that list they do have a like a recommended aperture, and I found with some of the doubles it'll say like 100 millimeter, in
Mm.
order to split it, and I've split some of those with a 60 millimeter
Mm.
telescope. Now this one said 100 millimeter, and I figured with the 90 mil Borg, no problem. But
Mm.
like again, this was on the cusp of what that Borg was capable of.
Wow.
Yeah, so very, very interesting one. Then I moved on to 100 Herc, just two white twins, pretty close in the 30 millimeter, but an easy split when I put the Leica in at 8.9. And then I swung over to the Wild Duck, wanted to take in a little bit of eye candy, and um, it was probably one of the best views I've had of the Wild Duck through a modest refractor.
Nice.
Probably had about 50-ish individual stars that I could count. But like with averted vision, seeing all of the sort of dark lanes or, sort of intricacies of that cluster were super awesome. It was really fun.
Yeah.
Then I went back to some doubles, went to Alpha 1 Capricornus. This one was really challenging as well. The secondary was very faint. I could only see it with averted vision in the 8.9. It did give me a pretty good run in order to see it. In fact, what I had to do was rack the focuser in and out just a bit, and
Hmm.
that sort of stimulated my averted vision to pull in that companion. But yeah, it definitely needs some aperture, and I don't know that I would have seen that one from the city. I don't know. Light pollution may have washed that one out. It would
Hmm.
have been pretty tough.
Hmm.
What else here? I moved on to, I think it's Dabi, or Dubai, maybe. Dabih. I think that's also up in Capricorn. Really easy split. It was wide, bright. The primary was orange, secondary was blue, so a little bit of that Albireo effect going on there. Then I moved to Omicron Capricornus. Saw two stars, but not a clean split in the 30 millimeter. They were just a little too close. But when I dropped the 8.9 in, it was pretty easy. However, it was pretty low on the horizon. So I was looking through a lot of atmosphere, and things were dancing as they do at that altitude. And it was hard to tell, but one of the stars might have been blue. It appeared to have color, but because of all of that muck that I was looking through, it's hard to say for sure.
Mm.
I played around with the SQM a little bit, the sky quality meter.
Oh.
Um, it was kind of neat. So at 11 o'clock, it read 20.93, overhead, which is a pretty strong rating, but not as strong as I expected. And about 10 or 15 minutes later, so maybe let me set the backdrop here. Um, the park was very dark. Like it was full, and I expected, to be kind of bothered by a lot of light from other campers. But luckily, everybody was very respectful, or they went to bed early. I'm not sure, but there's really no lights on anywhere in the park, other than right beside me, one of the authentics. Some people brought a propane fireplace thing so that they could still have a fire despite the fire ban.
Oh, they knew a trick.
Yeah, yeah. So they had their fire going, but it was shielded from me. Like I couldn't see it, which was great. But so I did that SQM rating at 11 o'clock. And like I said, it was 20.93. About 10 minutes later, they turned off their fire pit thing. So I did another SQM and it went up to 21.14. And I thought
Wow.
that was super interesting. Like part of that is, the sky is still darkening a little bit, right? Because it
Yeah.
wasn't 100% dark. But I think a bigger impact was that fire being turned off. And
Yeah.
you and I have talked about it before, how easy it is to spoil a dark site that is as
Oh,
dark as a
yeah.
Bortle 1. It doesn't take much. And I think there's some analytical proof that,
Oh, for
the
sure.
fire was that little fire was impacting the SQM rating.
Yeah, for sure. It's like if a few people have some bright lights on a block from you in the city, it just doesn't even matter. But if a neighbor, out here has a light on 2 blocks away from me, like it's really impactful.
Yeah, absolutely. So that was interesting. And then about 11:30, it was noticeably dark, in the park. Kind of that western or northwestern brightening from, the sun setting was pretty much all gone. So, I did another rating or reading with the SQM and it was 21.3. And then I thought, I wonder what it is at, like, if I pointed at Sagittarius, kind of the brighter part of the Milky Way, and it dropped to 20.8. And
Yeah.
yeah, I thought that was kind of interesting as well.
I've seen that as well. That's like one of the challenges that I find with the SQM meters. And are you using one of the newer ones?
Yes, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, every time I make these sort of comments, people write in because I did have one for a while. Heck, I may even still have it because it was just an old one that that someone had loaned me at one point in time from the RESC somewhere out here. Anyway, and they that one there, like I noticed, I took it down to Grasslands and I played around with it one night, and depending on where I pointed it in the sky, I was just getting wildly different readings. Now I understand that the newer ones have this smaller band to actually do a better reading. But to my eye, I just kind of look up and try to figure out what the sort of faintest stars that can be seen, which can help calibrate my own brain as well compared to other nights and such. I always kind of just sort of do that anyway. I feel like that's just a natural part of observing. But it is really neat, especially with the newer ones. They do sound quite a bit better.
Yeah, yeah. It's a neat little thing to pull out, and it doesn't take very long to
No.
take a reading. So,
Yeah.
neat way to compare some skies.
Yeah, like I've even seen it where like we have like some natural sky glow. We certainly had some the other night, and then
Hmm.
point it to you point it to the north, and there might be like a weak aurora it's picking up. You point it near the Milky Way, and when you're in a sky that dark, like it always makes me wonder if it's being impacted more by those things because out here it's Bortle 4-ish, and give or take depending on the night, and the Milky Way is this very defined line, but it doesn't have this huge extension to it. But down in the grasslands, it's like you can't figure out where that edge is. It seems to almost go all the way from Capricornus past Libra. I mean,
Hmm. Hmm.
it spans almost the entire. So no matter where you point that thing, you're almost going to be picking that up when the Milky Way is overhead because you'd have to point it really, really far off in order not to be impacted by that. But like I said, I really don't know. I just like to look up and then pick the
Yeah.
stars. But it is fun to have that sort of tool, that's for sure.
Yeah, yeah, it's a different, data source. Um, After that, I just moved on to a bunch of eye candy objects. Uh, the North American Nebula, talked a little bit about that on the last episode. Could see it without any filters through the telescope,
Mm,
but put in that Teleview Neb Buster, and it brought it out a lot better. The Gulf of Mexico area, sort of Florida there, was far more defined, and just the general shape was a little easier to see with that
yeah.
filter in. The filter did nothing on the veil. It was,
Really?
yeah, yeah, I really didn't think it did anything. Maybe a
Which
little
one
bit.
is it? Is it the UHC?
Yeah, yeah, that's the
Okay.
one that I have.
Okay.
And like it darkened like it maybe made the edges just a little more distinct. But I was able to see it without the filter.
Mm,
Not super apparent. Like an O3 would have really made that thing,
yeah.
jump out at me. But the neat part about it was just how it, like that 30 millimeter UFF, just like made the veil seem small almost because the
Yeah.
field of view was so large. It was crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Talked about the wild duck. Uh, and then I moved to Sagittarius, and like I started at Ptolemy's cluster, M7, and really
Hmm.
just sort of worked my way up. Like there's sort of a nice little chain there that you go up, and there's a whole pile of Messier objects. I from M7, I went to M6, then the Lagoon and the Trifid, M23, 24, 17, 16. It was just an incredible, like, I just love that part of the sky. It's so fun to look at. And with that
Hmm.
wide field, it really was quite neat to take it all in. But what's kind of interesting? So the 30 millimeter UFF gives me, I think, about 16 times magnification in the 90 millimeter. So I pulled out the binos, the 12 by 36 Canon image stabilized binos, and honestly, the view of those objects, like starting at Ptolemy's cluster and working my way up, really wasn't that different in those binos compared to the 30 millimeter UFF in the Borg. Certainly, the Borg had a little, it was a crisper view, and the aperture did play into it a little bit, but the views were far closer or far more similar than they were dissimilar, which I thought was a kind of an interesting result. I just wasn't expecting that.
Nice.
Yeah, some aurora popped up in the north, and nothing too crazy about the aurora. It was just neat to see. What's kind of interesting too is I did not see a single Perseid, which kind of figured I would have at least seen a few. Um, and then, I went to bed because it was probably about 12:30, and I wanted to do some hiking the next day, as I mentioned. And, I had a weird animal encounter, I think, that
What?
night. Yeah, so this harkens a little bit back to the episode we did about some cloudy night thread topics, and one of them was, I think, like, being scared of the dark or something like that.
Mm.
Or anyway, I went to bed. I was almost asleep, and I'm staying in the Authentic, and it sounded like there was something on, like, there's a front deck on these things, a wooden deck, and a couple stairs up. And you have some nice, like, Adirondack lounging chairs there. But it sounded like something was on my deck and, like,
Mm.
almost pacing because it was like wood was creaking. And
Oh.
I'm like, what is happening here? And at first, like, I'm tired. So my brain's not working quite right. And I think, well, it's probably just some wind, and, these structures
Just the
sometimes
wind,
shift a
Shane.
little bit. Yeah.
It's just the wind.
And, but then I'm like, but there is no wind. It's not windy. What is happening here? So by the time I kind of process all of this stuff, I bet 30 minutes had passed of this creaking noise. So I unzip my sleeping bag, and the noise stops. So I'm thinking, okay, yeah, it was some weird animal, and, I scared it away. So I zip up my sleeping bag. Things seem okay until about 2 or 3 in the morning. And then the same noise starts again. And I'm like, what is happening? So I get out of bed and walk to the front of the Authentic where there's some windows, and I pull back the shade, shine my flashlight out, and there's nothing there. And
Mm.
so I wait until it's happening again, shine my light out, and there's nothing there. And anyway, this kind of goes on basically for the rest of the night. I barely got any sleep, maybe 3 or 4 hours of sleep. So I probably should have stayed up observing.
Mm.
And then the strangest part, so now it's morning. I can't figure out what the heck this thing was. I go out on that deck to try to recreate the noise, and I can't. Like, the deck doesn't creak in any way. I push on the side
Mm.
walls of this thing trying to make the noise, and I can't. So I have no idea what I heard or what was causing the noise, but it was kind of a strange end to the night. So
Mm.
who
That is
knows?
that is weird, but it probably there's so many ground squirrels down there. It probably was like a ground squirrel, I'm guessing.
Well, I don't know how it would make a noise that loud for what I was hearing, and again, it was like wood, like kind of that wood creaking noise when you walk across like a hardwood floor almost, and
Yeah, yeah, yeah. But we have a ground squirrel here in our place, so maybe this is why I'm sensitive to it. And that is what it sounds like. Like
hmm,
it like the sounds are really quite creepy and crazy. We got to get somebody in to get it out. I've set traps, but it seems to be able to trip them without getting in the trap.
hmm,
Um, and yeah, it sounds a lot bigger than it is. And I didn't know. I thought it was a raccoon for a while. It could have been a raccoon too. But when I look out and then I see it come out, I'm like, it's this ground squirrel. And some of them can be a fairly big size, but they just I don't know what they do with wood or or how they move, but it does. Like what you described, like here, like even though it's not in the cabin, like it's just sort of in the walls and that.
hmm,
But it will sound like almost like somebody's walking through the kitchen. But
hmm.
literally, I can like, and it will do it even when we're up and around, like, in the late evening or something. Like you'll be here and you'll hear it go across, and it's like, holy smokes! Like it sounds like just what you described. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Well, there's no shortage of ground squirrels around my Authentic, and Also, a few hares were hopping around and going underneath it. So it
Yeah,
was likely
could
something like that. It was just
something like that. But
very, very annoying.
the ground squirrel, like even still, like I mean, I couldn't believe like we started hearing it and I thought it was mice and I trapped a few mice, but it's like it's not a mouse. It's way too much to be a mouse. And then sometimes we'd see like there's some cinder blocks outside that kind of like where the entrance point is, kind of get moved a little bit. And I'm like, a mouse would never be like, it couldn't move a cinder block, but certainly a ground squirrel could as it's like squeezing in amongst them, it would like shift it a little bit, right?
Hmm.
Anyway, I'm certain that's what it is, those darn things. Sorry, and I have a sort of a vengeance on for this thing now. So,
Yeah, yeah. There's blood in your voice there.
uh, yeah, it's kind of last night. It was kind of it woke me up. So,
Mm.
yeah, I think it. Yeah. Anyway, to make a long story short, but yeah, well, that sounds like a good night. And did you get some good hiking in?
Yeah, yeah, I did. Yeah, the next day it got really hot there, which is not surprising.
Mm.
Like I was on the trail by about 9:30. I did about 6.5, maybe 7 kilometers, but by 10
Wow.
o'clock it was 31, and I wasn't there much past 11, and I was a puddle. I was
Yeah.
quite hot, and honestly, my energy was just non-existent because of my terrible sleep the previous
Mm,
night. But
that's too bad.
in fact, the other thing too is I brought my coffee beans and everything, but I forgot my coffee grinder at home. So I had no coffee the next day. And I was like so
Oh,
frustrated with everything at that point.
yeah.
I just said, I'm going to go home. I'm not going to do this hike because I'm tired, all of this stuff. And then I was like, no, this was part of the trip. I came here to do astronomy and to do some hiking.
Yeah.
I'll be upset if I don't do the hike. So I
Yeah.
went out and, I think had I had a better sleep and maybe some coffee, I probably would have stayed till noon or 1 o'clock and dealt with the heat. But anyway, all in all, it was a great trip. It's always a pleasure to go down there, and it's just such a great place to be. Whether you're into astronomy or you just enjoy nature, it's a wonderful, wonderful place.
Yeah. Yeah. Which hike did you do?
I just did my own actually. I went
Oh,
to
okay.
Zahersky's Point, like there's that
Okay.
driving trail,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
and just parked in the little parking lot they have there, descended into the valley, and walked to. There's kind of a butte that has a bunch of exposed bedrock, and
Yeah.
so I was checking that out and
Cool.
just kind of exploring in and amongst the buttes around there.
Yeah. Yeah, I've done a few walks around in and amongst that area. It's really quite amazing. Wow.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah, it's
that's
quite
pretty cool.
nice. Yeah, yeah, it was a good time. They're um, they're maturing a lot of the trail system. So like the trail that takes you to the Valley of a Thousand Devils, which is one of the best hikes I've ever done in my life. Like they have equipment out to plow like bit like wider trails and I think make it more visible for hikers so that they don't get
Oh, yeah.
lost, need rescue, which I think happens multiple times a summer.
Yeah, that has been a challenge down there. I know. Like I've done a little bit of the hiking, like a little bit, and I've gone out with parks on a few of the day trips kind of thing. But it's easy to get like once you get up over that first hill, everything looks the same, right?
Hmm.
Sort of,
Yeah, yeah.
uniquely the same, such that when you turn around and come back, yeah, and people don't take enough water and then they get a little bit disoriented and then it's a problem, right?
Oh, for sure. Yeah, yeah.
So that's good to hear since they're in that zone and yeah, it's just the way it is down there. Wow, that's awesome.
Yeah. So that is my report.
Good.
So what's next? We're talking about telescopes for like young, small children, I guess, eh?
Yeah, so you were saying something about thinking about getting a scope for someone in your life. Do you want to tell us a little bit about that situation?
Yeah. So I have, well, nieces and nephews that span ages 6 to 25. And about a week ago, I was in Drumheller, Alberta, with all of my younger nephews, and one of the 6-year-olds is like really into astronomy and the planets, and wanted to see Jupiter, but Jupiter wasn't conducive to a 6-year-old's bedtime, so
Mm,
we weren't able to look at that. But he's really interested in telescopes, and his mom and dad would like to buy him a telescope.
mm,
But they were asking me what should they get, and there's a couple things like, one is it's a 6-year-old, so their attention span isn't, they don't focus in on one thing for very long. They try a lot of things, and some things that they like stick, and if they don't like it, they maybe never pick it up again.
yeah.
So while he has an interest in a telescope and they would like to give him one, use and to observe with, they also don't want to make a sizable investment in case he uses it for 20 minutes and then never picks it up again,
Yeah.
which is totally fair. But they also don't want, like a cheap telescope that would be frustrating to use and then have that be the cause of him not wanting to use it again.
Yeah.
So that's one big factor. And then the other factor is he's 6 years old. He's not very tall.
Yeah.
And like even like a small refractor is probably a pretty big telescope for this guy. So, you know, it, a telescope where he can easily look through the eyepiece and not have to climb on a stool or something like that would probably be ideal for him. So, I kind of threw that at you at a text in a text message just to
Yeah.
say I'm actually kind of struggling with this. I don't know what to recommend that is inexpensive,
Yeah.
provides good quality, good enough quality, but also like easy enough for like a 6-year-old child to use. So you sent me a couple thoughts. Do you want to talk a little bit about some of your experiences with your nephews and just kind
Yeah.
of where you're at with this?
Yeah. So I went through something similar. I have a few nephews, and then one of them eventually became more interested than the others. But anyway, like you mentioned, height can be an issue. They're not so tall, and then it can be difficult just to handle the equipment. Um, and then also, like you were saying, like the finances of it, like you don't want to be spending so much money because they could lose interest, and then as well, being up late, and then
Hmm.
technology is always a distraction. So what I end up doing, sort of reflecting on my own, personal journey in astronomy and just some of the things that I notice is I wanted them to have like the best chance of success at being able to point the instrument and find whatever it is. If they want to look at the moon, to be able just to manually point it and then see the moon, or if Saturn or Jupiter is up, just to be able to take it and point it there themselves.
Hmm.
Um, so what I ended up buying was an 80 millimeter f5 because it's not a very expensive telescope, and then it has a very wide field of view, and they're pretty robust, right?
Yep.
And like you say, if they lose interest, then there's not a lot. I think I got it for $80 or something during the pandemic, and there's a lot of them around. They can be purchased used or whatever, but even new, I think 120 is about the going price, and they're all pretty good. Like regardless, just make sure you get one with a better focuser, because I think some of them have fairly plasticky focusers. But what I end up doing is I had bought the AZ GTI mount for myself, which is fairly expensive, and you can get a package with an 80 millimeter f5 and that mount, but I wouldn't do that. So what I did is I took the tripod from that setup and I mated it with, it's like a Skywatcher. I want to say it's an AZ5, and but it's not available in North America. It's one that you can get in Europe. So I ordered that in, and it's not very expensive. I want to say it was like 180 Canadian, maybe. And
Okay.
so basically I had the tripod for free, 180 on the mount, and $100 on the telescope, say. So for shipping and everything all in. And then I bought two eyepieces, maybe three eyepieces, I can't remember. And and I think I spent a total of say 100 on those ish. So for like less than $500, I kind of had them up and running. And of course, I ripped apart the 80 millimeter and kind of modified it a little bit. But I have a few nephews and nieces, and that niece is not anywhere interested in any of this stuff. But a few of my nephews, or a couple of my nephews, had expressed some interest over the years. I guess three of them had. And so I sent it down for one nephew. Well, of course, he had no like he's very science oriented, so I thought he would be the person that
Mm.
would want this. And then it was actually one of my other nephews who really took it up. Like that nephew is more interested in sitting like legit and doing mathematics. He's very good at maths and other sciences, but not as much in like looking through a telescope versus one of my other younger nephews was more interested in actually taking a telescope. But it was great because the first nephew had it at my parents' place, like their grandparents' place, and it was sitting in a closet or whatever. And and then this is like in true fashion, right? The telescope gets put away into a closet, and then my other nephew, in true style, was just like as young children do, going and like rummaging through things, and stumbled upon it and was just like, oh, there's a telescope here, can I use the telescope?
That's
And
awesome.
so yeah, it worked out really, really good, such that they were able to. And then my parents called me out, and they're like, "Can they use?" I'm like, "Of course! It's like anybody who wants to use it can use it. It's not doesn't have to be for any one particular person." So he ended up taking it and just like learning how to find things in the sky himself and, doing all that kind of stuff, which is super cool because you can go and talk to him about, what he's seen on Jupiter, and he's been able to see like the moons of Jupiter and the bands and Saturn, and, he can find like the Andromeda galaxy and some of the nebula and star clusters in summer. And it's really good. So I think that telescope has worked out pretty well. The only things that, and it's just like a limitation, right?
Hmm.
Is that sometimes I wonder if maybe because he did get so good at it, to be honest. Like I really thought that like that finding business, and maybe it is just like a victim of its own success a little. 80 millimeter f5 is a little bit underpowered. He's in a dark sky. Like I kind of had then thought, oh, maybe I should have got a 6-inch f5 for them, like a little reflector. That maybe that would have been a little bit better, or like a 6-inch f8 Dob, because with the 80 millimeter f5, yeah, you can see the planets a little bit. You can kind of see a little bit on Mars, but it's really not an 80 millimeter f5 is achromat is not a planetary instrument by any stretch of the imagination.
Hmm.
And so I thought that maybe a 6-inch reflector might have been a better idea. So it just depends. It just depends. But that is such a dedicated instrument for astronomy. You can't use it as a spotting scope like you can with an 80 millimeter f5. And then I also thought that if they got really into the astronomy at some point, an 80 millimeter f5 makes a great secondary telescope,
Mm. Yeah, it does.
versus a lot of the other options there. So, and what did I can't remember the eyepieces exactly that I bought, but I think I bought a 32 millimeter Plossl. In fact, I'm sure I did one of the inexpensive ones for the lowest power wide field. And then I bought, I think, two paradigms from Astronomics, and probably the Plossl there as well. But they won't ship to Canada anymore, so that's kind of out. But yeah, that's what I went with. I think if I was doing it again, I mean it depends, and it depends on the individual young person, but a 6-inch telescope can start to be on the big side for a 6-year old, depending. But
Yeah.
yeah, I like the fact that with the ADF5, they can take it out on their own. They don't need somebody to help them with it. It's very easy to set up. So it's like tripod mount, slide the telescope on. It's like one, two, three, and then you can just point it. And that is so simple. That's what I was looking for.
Hmm.
And it's very intuitive, right? Because the tripod goes on the ground, the mount goes on the tripod, the telescope goes in the mount, right? There's nothing really to think about. They can do it. I watch them. They can do it in the dark without a light or anything because it's, as we know, it's tough enough to handle your light and set up your telescope. And that's why we all like to go out and set up before it's dark or whatever. But chances are a young person like that is going to notice that it's dark and clear and then want to set up. And so I was super impressed that it worked very, very well for that. It's a little bit underwhelming. I almost like, what would be ideal, Shane, of course,
Tell me.
would would be like your setup, like a 90 millimeter Borg on a similar mount. But really that's what I
Yeah.
did is I set up something just like what we use, but in the most affordable way possible that works well. And and somebody was writing me about one of these mounts too, if I hop back to my email. Um, let's see, it was I think Bob, yeah, Bob had written about the SV Boney or Civ Boney 225 mount. So there might be some good options from SV Boney, but I don't know honestly if maybe getting like an ED Apo of some sort, spending another couple $100 might have been a better option in the end. I think initially I would have been disappointed because my first nephew didn't take up the hobby, but then the second one did so much that then I kind of regret it not getting that slightly better instrument for slightly better views of the planets. So it is a tough choice. Sometimes I've thought about even getting a used ED scope and sending it down because at least with that mount you can put a variety of instruments on it. But
Hmm.
uh, but yeah, maybe one day I'll try to get like 100 millimeter ED scope and send it to them because I think if they saw like Mars or any of the planets through that, because really honestly, once you get to like a 4 inch, reasonably well corrected refractor, I mean everything else is very incremental, as you and I both know.
Hmm.
Um, you really have to get to monster telescopes before you see too much more of a jump. But I think the jumps are pretty good up to that size. Anyway, I'm not sure if this is helpful at all for you, Shane. How close are they? Are they living in
Uh,
Alberta or are they here?
they're in Edmonton, so
Okay.
they're a little ways away. The other thing I was thinking of is like piecing together like one of the vintage telescopes, like a longer achromat that
Mm,
like the quality of those optics are still quite good if you get a decent maker, and mechanically and all of the stuff that's important, they function well.
yeah.
The only thing is, they're often like the focuser is often made for a
Yeah.
0.965 inch diagonal and eyepieces. But that's a pretty easy upgrade. You can get a modern diagonal that has a nose that's 0.965 inch, but it
Mm,
accepts inch and a quarter eyepieces. And then, you can use everything modern at that point. So I'm kind of thinking maybe that's an option too, because depending on which vintage telescope you're going for, you get a lot of quality for $100 to $200 sometimes. So kind of minimal investment. You get something that will perform well, can take some abuse, and still provide some really good views because they're often longer focal length refractors,
hmm.
so you can really push the magnification and see some interesting detail on the moon. And I've looked at Saturn through what the heck was it? Well, I think it was a 60 millimeter Tasco 70E5 or whatever the heck that thing was. and it was
Hmm.
phenomenal. Like, you could see the polar caps, you could see some of the albedo features. Like it was a fine observation, and
Mm.
so they're quite capable. The only problem is, well, there's a few problems. Like I mentioned, modernizing it is one, but the other is just, you kind of have to wait for one to fall into your lap because
Yeah.
you can't order one from a department store.
Yeah, I also wonder, and now I don't question. I haven't really looked through as many of those, but I've looked through a couple of yours, I think, and a few others over the years. And the like you say, the optics are very, very good, but they tend to be a little bit more complicated. Like there's sort of like more pieces in that around, and that was the thing that I was a little bit concerned about. I wanted to keep it to like this very one, two, three, and then a couple eyepieces kind of
Mm-hmm,
thing. Like I
hmm.
said, I went with the three-part setup and then the three eyepieces. And then it's pretty easy for them to keep it all in their mind because they know that it's these three pieces and these three pieces, and then there's a finder scope, and that's it. And it's not like a lot of gear that's around, and it's sort of can be cobbled together into they have it in like a Tupperware container or something like that, so it works pretty good because it's short, right?
Oh
And that
yeah,
would
yeah.
be that would be my concern is that if it is of any size and any complexity, that just creates like some barriers. But I mean, some some people just love getting it. Just the look of those telescopes is beautiful, and then some individuals might just enjoy the process of setting it up. But so I am making a few assumptions there. But I don't think it's an easy choice. What do you think about a little reflector, though? Do you have any thoughts? And I've seen some of those small tabletop ones. Now, I think
Yeah.
some of them aren't that great. They're like 4 1/4, but they have spherical mirrors. So I think those ones are out. But I believe that Skywatcher and maybe even Celestron have had some of those 6-inch f5s that are full parabolics that are pretty good, I think, if I'm recalling correctly.
Yeah, yeah. I have thought a little bit about those. And like even when we started the podcast, Phil from the UK had that little Celestron one. I can't
Yeah, I
remember.
think that was one of the ones with the spherical mirror, though.
Okay, yeah. I don't know a lot about them, but I think that that's a solid option because I think like Skywatcher makes one too that has the sliding upper tube assembly. So
Yeah,
like,
that's the one I'm kind of thinking
yeah,
of. Yeah.
yeah, like that. I think that is a strong candidate. One thing I'm not sure about is the collimation aspects of those. Like, I don't know if the mirror like is essentially locked in place, or if you have to, collimate it because collimation for a young person might be a little challenging, and if you're buying a laser to, collimate it with, it's yet more money out the door. So that's the
Yeah.
only part of it that I'm not sure about. So I'd have to do some research on it. But I'm also interested in listeners' thoughts on this one. Any listeners that have maybe used that particular telescope, or if they have other thoughts too on, a package for a 6-year-old, and what would be a good, telescope for them.
Yeah, I'm just looking at the All-Star Telescope website here, and they've got a few different versions of it, but they do make one called the Heritage 150, and it's a parabolic mirror, and it is f5, and it has that sliding upper assembly. Yeah, I think that like optically aligning at the collimation is going to be a little bit of a challenge. They make it in a 130, but the 130 is like a 5-inch and it's 420, and the 150 is a 6-inch for 490. And I don't know why you would. I think like the difference in weight and price, it doesn't make any sense. The 150 would be the way to go in my mind.
Mhm.
Um, but I think they are reasonably good little tabletop telescopes. But like you say, I would almost like to get one at some point in time. I have like the perfect spot for it. Now that I have that big table up there. But anyway, yeah, it could be an option. But I don't know. I'd be curious to know how well it stays in optical alignment. that would
Hmm.
be that would be the challenge. That would be the challenge there for sure.
Yeah, yeah. So I need to do a little more research and see what I can recommend for them.
Yeah, I'm just looking. They have a whole section here at All Star Telescope on. I think we're going to chat to them at some point this year on telescopes for. It says best telescopes for kids and families. They got the 80 millimeter f5 there, a couple 130s, a 120 millimeter f5. These little reflectors. Then there's the ones with like the Star Sense Explorer options where you put the cell phone on and then point it around. Those ones tend to be, looks like they're like a little bit more by $100 or so. Yeah, I'm not sure about those. I kind of feel like when you have to like put your cell phone on and then it you could probably figure out a way of doing that without spending the extra $100. So
Hmm.
I'm not sure about those four options, but I've never really used them before. And yeah, I think the great part about doing this is that when you see Saturn, like, it's that discovery moment, right? It's
Hmm.
and so I get a little bit concerned about putting too much technology between that, like what you see with your eye. You go out, you look at the sky, and you're like, "Wow, this is amazing. What's that bright star?" And then, you know, you you figure out that's Saturn. But then the actual of the pointing of it, that physical process, there is something to that, and then seeing it for yourself, that's a real rush. And I'm not sure that you would get that same feeling from using the technology, at least at the outset. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a
That's
good
my
point
only
too.
that's
Yeah,
my
yeah.
only thing. Not that I don't use technology when I'm observing, but just for that newcomer, like where you really want them to have like, because that's what the experience is, right? It's that whole sense of discovery for somebody at this starting point. I think
Yeah,
anyway. That's
yeah.
just
And
my
there's
opinion.
there is a neat feeling when you find something on your own for the first time, especially. It's pretty cool. And yeah, that is a neat part of it for sure.
Yeah. What do you know what they're sort of hoping to get out of it, or how long they've had the interest? Or six is fairly young, I think, but
Yeah, it is fairly young, and from the parents' perspective, I think they just, if there's if an interest that their child has, whether it's sports or hobbies or anything else, I think they just want to provide the opportunity to see if it turns into like a passion or something that is more than just a fleeting interest.
mm,
So I think that's kind of where they're at. Maybe another option too is I just let him borrow one of my telescopes for a year. If he uses the heck out of it, then you make an investment, and if he doesn't, then I take it back. So,
that would almost be like your best option, to be frank,
mhm.
because like if you can meet up again, I know the odd time you go up to Edmonton, I think, if I'm recalling correctly, and if you can kind of take one up and then spend some time with them, and then like, because then they might be more inclined to do it, like to kind of earn that telescope. I
Mhm.
always like that. My parents like instilled this in me. They never, although they debate it, it was pretty funny. My wife's gonna laugh here. She's in the background because I just made the casual comment that they never bought me a telescope, and they never did. My parents never bought me a telescope, but they think they bought me a telescope because they instilled that in me. But I had wanted a telescope when I was a kid, but they were of that like mine where they thought that I would lose interest. And here's the thing is that maybe I would have, right? Like, what if they did buy it and because I didn't really earn it? Do you know what I mean? Like, maybe I
Yeah, yeah,
wouldn't have, it would have just been too easy, right? They bought the easy telescope with the easy setup, and instead I really had to earn it,
yeah.
and I did get binoculars as a gift from a partner at one point in time, and a basic, and I had to go and like figure out what star chart to get and then learn the sky and then get a job and buy my telescope was like pretty much just about the first thing I bought when I had a job after paying for university tuition. Um, so I don't know. It's funny, like you say, and I'm not a parent, and I don't give any advice to this effect, but I wonder just from my own experience if it had been simply provided, right? But I did know somebody who was similar, and somebody had loaned them a telescope, and they used it a bit. And then it was sort of like one of those things where they kind of used it for a year or two, and then it wasn't for them. And I remember going over and looking through that telescope and being a little bit jealous that I didn't have somebody that would loan me a telescope because I certainly would have shown them that I was worthy to have the telescope, right? Do you know what I
Hmm.
mean? I
Yeah,
like
yeah,
that idea, Shane. I think you've hit on it. I think this
yeah.
is this is the way to go is to figure out if you have an instrument because in a way that's what I did is I picked out one that in fact I have an 80 millimeter f5 here and do use it from time to time. Heavily modified, of course, but that's the instrument,
Hmm.
and that's what I provided them, um, and that's what they're using. But I think that's a good idea, and then they can kind of earn it, right? They can sort of prove that they're worthy to get their own instrument. Isn't that what Barnard had to do when he was at Mount Hamilton? Something like that.
Something like that. Yeah. Yeah, I'll give it some more thought. I think I have a few options in front of me, so it's just figuring out which is the right one.
Possibly behind you if you're in the same spot you were sitting in the last time we had the cameras on.
There you go. Yes, yes.
Yeah, yeah, that could be good because I think you have a few of those older telescopes and
Well, I've actually gotten rid of all of my old telescopes, which was
oh,
part of the issue.
hmm,
Because I used to have a few extras, just like there was a couple transactions I made where if I wanted one telescope, I had to buy three because,
hmm,
a lot of these old telescope collectors end up with a shed full of these things. And then
hmm,
at some point, they just want to clear them out to make, room for something else.
hmm,
So anyway, I, acquired a few of these things and, I've given some to other members of the family. So I'm kind of all out of those ones right now. But,
hmm.
I still have a few telescopes around here that I don't use nearly enough, so I can
Yeah.
easily lend it out and allow it to collect photon with somebody else.
Yeah, well, I mean, if you want, you can. I mean, I probably don't use my 80 millimeter f5, even if that's something you want to think about. I don't mind contributing that to the cause for a on loan basis, so you can take that under consideration
That's awesome.
as
Thank you.
as well if you'd like. That would be wonderful. So,
Yeah,
because
yeah.
like I say, I just use it 2 or 3 times a year. I just have it sitting up in the observatory. If something's in a weird position, then I can just take it out and take a look at something. But this is like 2 or 3 times a year, so it would be nothing for me to loan that off if that can serve your goal here. Would be great.
Yeah, cool. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem at all. Well, in full disclosure, Shane did offer to loan me a mount this week, so I may. It's not like this. It's not like we don't trade gear around. It's funny though because we do this podcast, and I was thinking about this when we were having Mike on, is that is that us like because it's difficult to get into all the weeds of all of this stuff, even though we do an hour a week and we used to do 2 hours a week just about. Um, like I think, and for sure, because people wrote and told us this, is that they were assuming we were buying all our gear new, and so we did some episodes in the past year or so on the fact that we don't. The odd time we buy something new, but in general, like I buy third-hand equipment, and I think it was maybe something we touched on too lightly earlier on. It made the appearance that we were buying all this new fancy gear all the time. Only if like something is on incredible sale will I buy it new or some way somehow. I had ConScope gave me just a tremendous deal on my 22 Nagler. It was basically at um, second or third hand cost for brand new. So of course I bought it. And then the same thing with my Explore Science 92 degree eyepieces and some of the other stuff that I bought since we started the podcast. If you wait for the sales, they can come, and that's when I buy something new. Typically, not buying something at full price. Just don't want to do it. Even if I could afford it, it doesn't enhance the hobby for me in that way,
Hmm. Hmm.
with
Yeah, I
the
get it.
exception of the filters. The filters, that's a whole different story, but I digress.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah. And the other is people like, and I feel like we haven't had as much reflector content. We had Mike on, maybe we can do that more often in the future because it again, it kind of makes it seem like we're these sort of refractor people more so than what, the true observing that goes on reveals. And I think sometimes we'll just refer to, oh yeah, we were looking at M31. Well, we were looking at M31 through Mike's 12 inch,
Yeah, yeah, very
like
different. Yeah.
there's nights where Mike will bring his scope up here, set it up, and I'm like, are you okay if we just observe together with your 12 inch? I want to enjoy a 12 inch
Hmm.
telescope for the night. And that's a lot of observing takes place like that, which, I think really should be part of our message in a way is, yeah, you're going to buy whatever equipment is you're going to buy, but then it's great to know other folks with other gear, whether it's a big Schmidt Cassegrain or a big refractor or reflectors or telescopes of different size. So anyway, that's a little bit more on that. So I digress.
Right on.
Yeah. Well, maybe we can have. I know I've chatted to All Star from time to time, and maybe we can have them on and have a little bit more of a deeper conversation about this. Yeah, I was going to try to meet up with them at the Saskatchewan Summer Star Party, but none of my plans are working out this summer, so I've had to cancel on that now. But anyway, we'll get to it eventually.
Hmm.
All right. Anything else to add to this show, Shane?
That is all, sir.
All right. Well, thanks for listening, everybody. Please share the show with other stargazers you know and send us any emails to actualastronomy@gmail.com.
Thank you, everyone, for listening, and we hope you enjoyed the show. If you are interested in more information, would like to contact us, or if you would like to support the podcast, check out our website, actualastronomy.com.